Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A.IdlePodcast, the podcast where I do weekly book reviews. This week, I am revisiting The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This debuted in February 2018 to success on the Saturday and Sunday bestsellers list. Now, along with this book, Stuart Turton also released The Devil in the Dark Water in 2020, which I also reviewed. He is an English journalist who has a brief background in teaching, and he graduated from the University of Liverpool with an honors degree in English and philosophy. Now, this book has, depending on where you live, which region, which country possibly, it's either called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle or The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. It's the same book, though. Now, I will say, though, that I don't see a lot of book reviews on this particular book, which I think I know why. We'll touch on that in a moment. Now, this book is a little bit longer. So Stuart Turton, his stories require more page time than the average fiction book. So this one is about 450 pages, and there are 60 chapters that are separated by the days. So for example, chapters 1 through 8 are all day 1, and then you go from there. Now, I will say the premise of this is slightly similar to Groundhog Day, which is a 1993 movie that basically you're just repeating the same day. And this premise has been done several times previously, like in the past 5 years. One movie that I can particularly think about is on Netflix, the film called Naked by Marlon Wayans. So there's various iterations of this kind of concept, but I will say this is not exactly the same as that. In a sense, the same day is repeating over and over and over again. However, you're going through that day in different perspectives, in different bodies, basically. And so you see different things, and you're able to, or hopefully you're able to put a timeline together by the time you get to the last day and the last perspective. The style of writing is very ominous. So when it comes to these mystery thrillers, or you can even, I guess this will be a murder mystery, the good ones at least always have a tone that increases your unease. So very similar to Agatha Christie. When I was reading this, I was super creeped out, which is great. I love it when my thrillers can actually manipulate my emotions. That means that the writing's great and it's able to pull you in to the plot. And it's also very descriptive. So the writing has to be descriptive because remember, you're not experiencing the exact same things. You're repeating the same day, but your surroundings change. The people you interact with change. And so descriptive writing is almost necessary in this case because it's not a clear-cut chronological timeline here. So we're kind of forced to reckon with the details. The main theme of this book is redemption. So there are various characters in this book. And I would kind of characterize it as like the souls. So they're all kind of confined to this one setting. And arguably, they're all there for punishment of some sort. So whether they have committed a crime or intend to carry out their own punishment, most are looking to escape. So people don't want to be there. Now, the plague doctor is very clear on this in the beginning. And we're going to get into the different characters in just a second. When it comes to motif, for sure, deceit and betrayal are woven throughout each character's story. So with these mysteries, the reason they're mysteries is because someone's not being honest. someone is not telling the truth, because if everyone told the truth, there wouldn't be a mystery. So, of course, you're going to have some deceit there. Also, death is a constant record being played in the background. So, it's a murder mystery. You know the death is coming. And honestly, you really can't do anything to stop it, or can you? So that's always something that is either a motivating factor for a character, or it's something they're running from. The setting is the Blackheath estate. And we're really not sure of the time period exactly, but that doesn't really matter. All right, so when it comes to the various characters, I'm going to touch on a few important characters, and I'm also going to give you the various hosts. So we wake up as one person, and generally speaking, when you're introduced to the main character, you expect that that's who they really are. So I want to say that basically this book is being told from one perspective, and so we're with that soul the entire time, but that soul occupies different bodies and different hosts. So there's let me see how many. I think there's 8. Yes, there are 8 hosts, and I'm going to touch on each of them. But first, the Plague Doctor, who is very important. So he has some hand in orchestrating the events at Blackheath. We're not really sure how much power he really has throughout the story. He serves as a guard almost to those that are inside this estate. He's often the one that delivers the instructions or the directions, the little that they do get, it's coming from him. And it's not known if he is to be fully trusted or not. So you can kind of look at him as another player in this game, but he does have some sort of power, so that sets him apart from everyone else. Now, the Plague Doctor is the one that states that there are 8 days and there are 8 hosts. 8 days is a little bit misleading. There's one day that's being repeated 8 times, but there are 8 hosts. Each host is somehow a witness to the murder that has taken place. However, each character has a specific literary role in this book. So the first host is Sebastian Bell. So he's almost used as a point of reference for future hosts because we don't know anything different. We know we wake up as this person. And so that kind of serves as a reference point for us as we move throughout the days. He's not very developed because he's disadvantaged by memory loss. So being that this is the first person, the first host that we're occupying, he doesn't have a memory of the events prior to him being there. So there's not room for character development because he's lost the entire day. He's trying to figure out what's going on. His redeeming quality, though, is his affection for Evelyn. So in a way, that kind of drives the solution to this whole debacle. The second host is the butler. The butler has kind of like a fragmented reality because he serves as like a time machine kind of for plot points. So the interesting thing about this is when one of these hosts is taken out, killed, or whatever may have you, that's when you jump to another host, or when the day is over. So you're jumping around from host to host based on when someone else passes out or they get killed or whatever may have you. This particular one comes up a few times in the book, so it's not exactly all the way chronological, but he is the second person that we are introduced to as a host. Donald Davies is the third host. He is the least developed. There's almost no backstory to this person. Most of the qualities that this host has arrives by way of Aiden. He's the second to last host to be occupied, which does not make sense because he is the third host, okay? But he's the second to last one that's occupied. And I promise it sounds like this doesn't make any sense, but I just don't want to spoil too much for anyone because I do think there's value in experiencing this book for the first time on your own. But hopefully, me pointing out who the hosts are will serve as a little bit of a spoiler, but kind of a guiding direction as well. Now, Lord Ravencourt is the fourth host. He is the start of the movement in the narrative. So up until this point, we've kind of just been wandering around trying to figure out what's going on. This is when things start to pick up, when we start to try to figure out what's going on with Evelyn. His biggest advantage is his mind and his intellect, which is very important in figuring out a murder mystery. He does have physical limitations, though. So this is one host where it's like we learn a lot, we analyze a lot, but we can't really, move everywhere that we want to. The fifth host is Jonathan Derby. He is completely heinous, gathers the details on long covered secrets, which, that's information, so that's useful. His disadvantage is he has a childlike attention span, and he is driven by his own pleasure. So even though we're occupying this other person that can give us a better perspective, this person is not very focused, and he's also driven by something completely outside of what is going on in the main plot line. Edward Dance is the sixth host. He represents pride. He is the seed of Daniel's true intentions. So just remember that for when the time comes when you read it. Jim Rashton is the seventh host. He serves as the direction for information collected thus far. And the detective work that he does brings purpose to this investigation. So we're finding out more and more information, and we're getting that purpose. The eighth host is Gregory Gold, who ultimately delivers the answer or the answers. And the last character I want to touch on is Daniel Coleridge. He's shady from the jump, okay? Shady as F, okay? So this person, you pick up on that like immediately. You know this person for whatever reason cannot be trusted. We eventually learn that this is our competition to get out of Blackheath. He's not a terrible person, but he's doing what he has to do. And so that's kind of one of the people that you really need to fear the most, because it's not like they're driven by emotion. He's driven by getting out of there, and the drive behind one of the external threats that Aiden faces. Now, I mentioned a few characters and a few names that I did not go into detail with because, again, I don't want to spoil too much for you, and it's also very confusing. So I think that Turton does a good job in introducing characters as they're necessary or as we're ready for them. So that was kind of a lot, but hopefully that little list gives you, some sort of clarity as you read along with the book. Now, my thoughts on this, first of all, I really enjoyed this book. I really did. And I was almost pleasantly surprised. I don't know if my expectations were just low or this book is so far ahead of other novels, but I'm very delighted in what it offers, and I think it's very original in the way that he puts together this timeline. And I haven't really been actively entertained in a thriller like this in a while. I read this book prior to reading The Murder Game by Carrie Doyle and also a few other Agatha Christie novels, but this is one of those current contemporary pieces that really surprised me and entertained me. So it's both possible and impossible to give you spoilers for this book. Because we are navigating through different perspectives, the facts can quickly become misunderstandings. So discovering new events can lead us to a new conclusion every chapter, which is part of the fun. Now, with that being said, spoiler alert for the next couple minutes. So I really did like about this book that it's kind of a coming of age slight theme. There's a parallel with Aidan Bishop's self-discovery when you really look at it. And again, you don't get this information until the very end. Now, minus the memory loss, Aidan has many internal conflicts mixed with external problems, leading him on a fulfilling character development. So the soul that we are occupying and the soul that we're traveling through this book with, he has the best character development because first of all, he wakes up not understanding who he is or where he is or what's going on. And so throughout the book, yes, we're with these different hosts, but he is trying to understand himself and learn what's going on with himself. And so that was probably one of the most fulfilling character arcs of the entire book. Now, with that being said, with the other characters, their arcs are kind of constantly being rewritten because we're uncovering new facts. So you could be with a host for the one of the days and think that this person is great, and then you jump into the next host the next day and you're seeing things from a different perspective, and then you're like, this person is like an idiot or a terrible person. So okay, so the reviews, it's very interesting with this book because when I finished reading it, I was like, hell yeah. I'm like, I love this. It kind of challenged me to think, and the answers were not laid out for me. The timeline was not exactly clear, and there were a host of different characters. That's all I need. I need those things in a thriller, in a murder mystery, and so he delivered for me. I really enjoyed this book. But I think some of the reviews, what I found was that they were either really bad or really good. People really either enjoyed this book very much or just completely hated it. The bad were, and it's not a lot of bad reviews, but from the bad reviews, this is what I got. The execution and the ending weren't satisfying enough for some people. The information dumps, because you get a lot of information with different hosts or different days, and people feel like there's not enough time to process, which doesn't make any sense to me because you can always put the book down, process the information, and then pick it back up. I think I did that several times with this piece, whereas usually I would just read straight through something. Sometimes you just gotta think on that and be like, what just happened? So it's a book, put it down. The Footman, okay, so this is one kind of threat. I kind of agree with this. The Footman violence was annoying and underdeveloped. He was definitely annoying, but he served as one of the driving factors of the plot, really, because you're fighting against X, Y, and Z, but there's also this physical force that you're actually running from as well. So, oh my gosh. And then the last one, listen, this is so ridiculous, and I'm so sorry that I even have to mention this, but some people felt like this book fat shamed one of the characters. I'm so sorry that people, listen, that is so ridiculous. And also when you read the book in the context of the character purposely has different limitations than other characters because that's how fiction works. And one of his character traits was that he was very smart, very intellectual, but this person physically cannot move around. So that's one of the things that contributes to the plot, contributes to the mystery and the information that the main soul is given. So I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. I thought that was out. Listen, in anything in life, if you pick up a book, let alone a fiction book, a fiction murder mystery book, looking for something to be upset about, I can't help you. So that was ridiculous. But the good, overall, like I said, it's very exciting. There is a theory, though, that they never leave the loop, that they're still in the loop. The loop continues. So I would love to hear anyone's thoughts on that. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this book, so I don't care what anyone says. I would like to pose a question, though, for anyone that has read this book. Is there a hero in this piece? And if so, can Aidan Bishop be considered a hero? I don't know. I would love an answer to that question. I don't know if we'll ever get that answer, but so my main takeaway here is that this kind of disjointed timeline works very well, and Stuart Turton knows what he's doing when it comes to perspective. This is how you put together a piece that seemingly it's the same events happening, but you're jumping from perspective to perspective. I love stuff like that. I cannot get enough of it. I really enjoyed it, and I think that he did it very well. If you don't want to think about it though, you're going to be very confused, so take that as you may. But Stuart Turton is like, he's up there now. He's one of my favorite writers because of this mainly. And also The Devil in the Dark Water, which I reviewed, that book was really good too. And it's so funny because they're so different, but you can still see how he plays around with perspective. So he knows what he's doing, and I'm going to keep buying all the books that he writes. If he releases more, I'm down. So yeah, so with that being said, thank you so much for tuning into another episode. I hope everyone has a good rest of their weekend.